Welcome. This is a quick tutorial for me and a summary for you about what nonviolent communication is and what an honor it is to be here with Judith Hanson-Lassiter, who will be guiding us this fall through right speech. Judith, really, truly so happy to be here with you always. Thank you for a moment of your time. Right speech in NVC is not exactly what we would think. And I would love for you to introduce our viewer or listener to the concept of nonviolent communication, and then walk us into what right speech actually is.
Well, as a student of yoga for many years, a teacher of yoga for many years, I learned about a concept called satya, which is defined as truth, like speaking the truth. And as I expanded my awareness into Buddhism, because I have a theory that everyone in the end becomes a Buddhist, I learned a similar principle, which is called right speech. And I intuitively, as a writer, I love to write and I speak for a living. I was drawn to this, but there wasn't a way that I could easily access about what that sounded like, what that would sound like. I love the abstract concept until I met Marshall Rosenberg in the late 90s. And Marshall Rosenberg is a PhD psychologist, and he developed this system and he called it nonviolent because he was inspired by the work of Gandhi. And it is a technique that resonated with me. The first class I took with him, I started crying because the way he was speaking to us touched me so deeply, but I couldn't figure out what it was. So I was very touched and also confused, and then began studying it and learning it, and have written a book with Ike Lassiter, What We Say Matters. And if I think about my life, it has been one of the greatest influences in my personal life, and certainly in my teaching life and in my professional life. It has given me a sense of deep groundedness and freedom that I feel that I could talk to anyone about anything and still stay, hopefully, connected to myself. And in our course, we're going to go through some basic techniques, as you know, because we've worked together so much around that. So what would you add to that?
So a couple of things. One is I just want to make our viewer or listener aware that you've been teaching this for decades. You're an author who's written almost more than 11 books on yoga, and you've studied this since the late 90s. You're also a very renowned asana teacher, not without your experience in a realm of situations that can and will and have been terribly uncomfortable. And to hear you say that there is nothing that scares you, no conversation that scares you, that was the transmission that I got 3 and some years ago when I first reached out to you on a matter that was very close to my heart, very tender, very challenging. And you helped me learn the matter of nonviolent communication as it applied to myself first. I didn't want it. I wanted more. I wanted, how do I talk to this person? What am I supposed to say? That's why I came. That's why we're talking, isn't it? And it was very clear to me.
Tell me what to say to this person.
Tell me what to say. And within minutes, it was like, no, actually, how you relate to yourself, Elena, is everything in this moment. And that, I think, is what informs what you've just shared with us. And that is definitely what informs now for 3 years, 3 critical years, my parenting, my partnering, my daughtering, because I'm a daughter, my sistering, my friendships, and relating.
Yes. Because all relationships are based first and foremost on the relationship we have with ourselves.
Hmm.
So what we learn first when we start learning nonviolent communication is to pay attention to what is alive in us in this moment, not to think about what am I going to say to the other person, but who am I going to bring to the conversation? Am I going to bring to the conversation with this other person someone who is present and aware of what's arising in them? And this is why I think it's so compatible with the study of yoga, meditation, Buddhism, because it starts with self-awareness. That's where it starts. And so that's what we'll spend our time in the beginning, is understanding, before we look at the situations, what arises in us, and deal with that first. And we might spend more time in the beginning than you would think we would on what's going on inside of me. What are my feelings? What are my needs? What do I want to request of this other person? Because when that's clear, then it's time to actually think about speaking with the other person, especially the more touchy or difficult or a conflict that's been going on for a long period of time in your life, or the people that are super near to you. It's not hard to use NVC with someone on a 1-800 number. It's a good time to practice it, in fact. But when we have these conflicts, as we all do as human beings, with the people close to us, we have reticence to even bring it up because it has not worked out in the past. And that's what was so amazing for me. And if I may tell a quick story, I was teaching a class out of state. I had just begun to learn NVC. And I was talking about, it was a yoga teacher training, very briefly in the broadest sense, the ethics that I think that we need to live as we are teaching. And a woman about 2/3 of the way back in the class started crying. And she said, I acknowledged her, and she said, I can't believe you said that about my guru. And I was taken aback because I didn't even know she had a guru. I don't mention other teachers' name from the mat. I hadn't mentioned anybody's name. And my first response, because this is how we're trained and this is how the ego operates, was to defend myself and correct her and say, no, I never said that. Did everybody heard me? Did I say? And build a case for being right. But then there was this little, in the back of my mind, a little thought arose. It's like, maybe I'll try NVC. So I gave her what we call empathy. And I said, it sounds to me like you really want me and everyone to have respect for your guru like you do. And she kind of straightened up a little bit and she just stopped crying. And I gave her 2 or 3 more sentences doing what we call guessing what might be alive in her, not telling her what she's feeling, but guessing. And she said, you could see her settle back, and the whole atmosphere in the class just dropped right back down. And 2 or 3 rounds of that, it was done. And we went right on. And I was like astounded. So the real kicker to this story, though, is at the end of the workshop. She came up to me to say thank you, as students often do, which is very sweet and kind. And she said, and I want to thank you for apologizing about what you said about my guru. And again, that urge rose to correct her and say, I didn't apologize. I don't even know, who your guru is, who she or he is. But I remembered I'd had just enough training to develop what I call the pause. And I remembered to take a little pause. And so I just looked at her and I said, you're welcome. And she hugged me and said, this is the best workshop I ever took, and left. And I still, years later, have no idea who it was. And this is a perfect example of NVC. By staying present with myself and then guessing what was up with the other person and she felt heard, seen and heard, which is a need we all have. She felt seen and heard. And then I did it again. And I was really so surprised that that was what she needed, because communication, as you know, it's not about what I say, it's what you hear. And so if I can be really clear in myself what my intention is, not to correct her, for example, not to defend, but just to be present with what, telling her what I heard. Just a simple thing. This is what I heard you say, not you said. This is what I heard you say, that, and guessed what it might be that she was feeling and needing. And it was so powerful that it taught me, probably more than it taught her, about the power of being present with myself, making a clear choice about what my intention is, giving the other person space and empathy and awareness. Before, if she had said, well, what's going on with you, like an experienced NVC person, you might say to me, well, yes, that's what was going on with me, but what's going on with you? And then we might have a different conversation. But most of our conversations will be like the former and not like that.
Right. A popular question that I'm getting regarding this class is, do we have time to work with Judith? Will we get to ask questions? What is the format?
So we'll start out, I'll introduce the principal, and then I'll ask if someone wants to work with that principal, and we will work one-on-one with a number of people through the class, through all the classes, definitely one-on-one. And that is the funnest part, because it's actually getting wet. It's getting in the pool, it's getting wet, and practicing this. And I'll give you some homework to do, and there'll be some chapters to read in the book. But the most important thing that we're going to learn from the course is self-empathy, because that, the ability to be aware of what's arising in us, to see it as our humanity, to accept it, to have empathy for it, is the basis of all relationships. And my definition of empathy is understanding independent of agreement. So I don't have to agree with you to give you empathy. And it shifts everything. That is the key to what we're doing. Learning self-empathy. That's the foundation upon which we understand how to have difficult conversations and stay present.
And I think what's most interesting too is, as frustrated as I was when I first started to learn, and as frustrated as others have been, to take that time to really learn how to relate to ourselves inwardly, to turn the light around, it has helped me in so many myriad moments to be present for myself, so that I don't have a response or a reaction that I don't intend to have.
Well, it's also, you may be in a situation where it's not about a conversation, but you're triggered. And you can say, how human of me to be triggered by that. I really feel a ruffle when I hear that, because it doesn't meet my needs for generosity or the care and concern of others, or whatever it is. And you can give yourself empathy without even having a conversation. You hear something on TV, or it's sometimes people, when they work with me in these courses, they wanted to have a conversation with a parent who's passed away, and they carry the parent with them, so I can play the role of the parent. We can work together. And I love that, how intrinsically compatible this work is to spiritual practice. It is the spiritual speech.
Yes.
Whether you do meditation or yoga, or you're a Buddhist practitioner, or what, if we have already that intention to be self-aware, this just gives us a way to deepen, enrich, and enliven that understanding of self-awareness, and to carry it into every conversation and into our daily life, off the mat and into the world, or off the cushion and into the world in which we live. So valuable.
It's so valuable. The other thing that I wanted to point out was that recently I was trained to facilitate grief groups for children and also adults, but primarily children. And the practice of giving myself empathy and then reflecting back to the children, I am never assigned to offer a solution to any of these kids who are suffering greatly from all kinds of complexity in their lives and loss. But I am responsible for helping them feel seen and heard by simply reflecting back what they have said or expressed. And this practice, it's almost as though I skipped over first grade and second grade and third grade and went directly into fourth grade in that realm because of NVC.
It is what has informed my yoga teaching. I just had my 53rd year anniversary of yoga teaching. What has informed it the most, not in any particular order, is having children, raising them, studying with BKS Iyengar, studying anatomy and physiology, and becoming a physical therapist, and meeting Marshall Rosenberg and learning NVC. And all of these things have, I believe, enriched me so humbly and allowed me to really grow, not just as a teacher, not just as a mother, not just as a PT, not just as a student, but as a human being in all the rest of my life. It has changed so many things in ways that are delicious. And it wasn't about fixing a person, fixing myself, fixing a situation. It was about the constant awareness of what is alive in me right now, what might be alive in you right now.
Can't thank you enough for this. To sum up, part of what makes us human is our ability to communicate verbally. But what contributes to our happiness, as we say in the description of this course, and to satisfying relationships is our ability to communicate well. And that begins, as you now know, if you're watching this long, within ourselves. Yeah. We will learn over the course of these 6 weeks how to communicate well within ourselves, how to refine the quality of the innermost dialogue, and that will then translate into what we learn about communicating well with others. What we bring to the situation, whether we bring some sort of hesitation to speak about difficulty, or whether we bring bravery and clarity to the conversation within and around us. This course is starting very soon, in early September. We are looking forward to this 3rd year in a row. All the sessions are on Tuesdays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 10:30 a.m. Pacific. Those are the live sessions. You'll plan on spending, roughly the 2 hours per week for our live sessions. And then perhaps there will be some homework that you can do. Yeah, Judith loves some homework. Practice and to put these concepts into action in a way that will, I promise, make you so proud of how you're showing up in the world.
Well, it certainly took root in you. And
it certainly did.
I just want to add one more thing in closing. It's also a lot of fun. I mean, it's just fascinating and fun and enjoyable. And you just get so wrapped up into listening to other people, even if it's not you, because you can relate to these basic human feelings and concerns. And it's just so heart-opening. And I just thoroughly enjoy dealing with the conflict now. I feel free from fear of conflict because there's such a great path that we can take. And I want to thank you for all you do in the world and all you are in the world, not just for your doing, but for your being. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Judith. Thank you. What I will say is this: if you're still considering the course, let's say you're in a partnership or a friendship or some relationship in your family that feels really sticky and complex, complicated. What this course will do is give you, as Judith just pointed out, the bravery and the clarity within yourself to have the conversations that need to be had without any of the muck and mire of questioning. There will only be a sense of compassion for yourself and for the other person. Even the most intractable situations and difficult people will turn into human beings worthy of your compassion in the light of NVC. I cannot say enough about it. It is why I am here as the admin intern for 3 years running. It is my pleasure and my honor to continue learning. And it's always a tutorial for me. A couple of other logistical situations. All the sessions will be recorded. So if for some reason you have a commitment during those times or any of those times, you will have the material. It will be available to you for an entire year until September the 1st of 2025. You don't need any extra materials or equipment, maybe a notebook, some
Or the
pen.
book is recommended.
And oh, right, of course, the book is recommended. It's called
Because we're going to give assignments out of what we say matters. So.
That's right. What we say
Yeah.
matters. That is on the page, and I'll make sure that that's super clear in our next email. The cost of the course is one payment of $399 or 2 payments of $200. The refund policy is you will contact us before September the 2nd of 2024, and we'll refund you in full. Thank you so much for that courtesy. And in the recommended reading, you will see required reading. You'll say what we say matters. And in the recommended reading, especially if you happen to teach yoga, is Judith's book, Teaching Yoga with Intention. This is a wonderful book. It was printed in 2021 with Shambhala. It is one of the most important books that I've ever read as a yoga teacher. And I'm so glad that it came when it did. It was perfect timing for me. Thank you so much, Judith.
Namaste. See you soon.
Yes, see you very soon. And if you have any questions and you're watching this, any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to email me info@elenabrower.com and I will answer your questions myself. Thank you so much.